Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of We Don't Watch Movies featuring me, Corinne.
And me, Monze.
Woo! Today
Woo!
we are talking about a movie I have seen and Monzi hasn't. It is Twisters. Ooh, which
No
I'm.
regrets.
Huh?
I just said no regrets.
No regrets. It's like. No regrets. I have no regrets seeing it, and you're not going to have any regrets if you see it, and you will regret it if you don't see it, especially if you don't see it in 40X. Okay, so Monzi, why have you not seen Twisters?
It just came out.
Came out a
I'm
month
not
ago.
that interested. I feel like I know that you are like you need to see this in theaters in 4DX.
Yeah.
I think 4DX would make me feel sick. Um, because I get motion sickness on a swing.
Mm.
I have a migraine right now. It's been going all day, so
Mm.
you know. Uh, but I think honestly, I could. I'll just wait for it to come out like on Netflix or something that I have that I don't have to pay for free. So because it's not free because I'm already paying for it, but
Mhm.
you know, like that.
Okay. All right. Well, we will address all those things, but
We will address all of those
we'll
things.
get back to that. Um, what do you think this movie is about? Oh, my first question actually before that. Have you seen Twister?
I have seen Twister.
What do we think
I
about
watched
Twister?
it recently, as
Okay.
in within the past years, a couple of months ago. I
Okay.
think I messaged you, no, when I watched it.
Yeah, but for the pod.
No, I know. I'm just. This is me trying to remember things. Um.
I'm not sure because you and Jesse watched because I made Jesse watch it.
Did
So
I watch it around the same time?
I think different opinions are happening around the same time, so I'm not sure
Okay.
whose is whose.
So when I was little, there was a ride at Universal Studios
There was a
for
ride at Universal
Twister.
Studios. Yes.
For Twister, I think I went on the ride. I remember distinctly the cow flying in the ride because it was one of those things where. So that was sort of my first. What's the word? Interaction with Twister or
Uh-huh.
Twisters or the Twisterverse, if
The
you would.
Twisterverse.
Uh,
I would actually.
um, and I was like, "This is I don't like this." Um, and so I never really watched it. I had seen it, like clips of it, bits and pieces. It would be like on TV, like on Telemundo or something,
Mm,
My dad or my grandma or whoever would be like watching it. And I'd be like, okay, well, this is not for me.
yeah.
I'm not the target audience of this
Yeah.
movie. Um, but yeah, a few months ago I watched it and it was interesting. It was good. I don't know if I'd watch it again. Um, and as usual, I'm more interested in, the relationships and characterizations of people than the actual destruction stuff. I don't like that. I don't like destruction.
Mhm.
Um, so, so yeah, when I watched it, I was like, the fiance just needs to get a clue. She just needs to leave. She was unnecessary. The fact that she kept following, I would have been like, immediately I would have been like, I would have clocked in. I would have been like, you know what? I don't belong. Peace. I'm gone. I'm out. Right? I hear the Twisters is kind of just like Twister, except maybe more Twisters. I don't know.
Okay.
I know Anthony Ramos is in it,
Yep.
and I love him.
He's a cutie.
Yeah, that white guy who's got the most generic face in the world is in it.
Glenn Powell.
Yep.
Yep.
A white girl who I don't know is in it. Um,
I forgot her name.
yeah, she's another generic white lady.
Daisy Edgar Jones. That's her name.
Doesn't stir anything in me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get. So to answer your question, yes, I have seen the first Twister.
Okay. So then, what do you think happens? in Twisters.
Okay. Because in Twister, singular, there was the two groups that were like, I don't like you, you're stealing my stuff, whatever, I'm going to continue to do your stuff and I'm going to follow you, right? I guess because people really seem to like Glenn Powell, I don't think that he's the bad guy in the movie. Which is what I wanted, because I always want the white people to be bad.
Right.
Because that's what it's like in real life.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess I was hoping Anthony Ramos was going to be the main character, but then the trailer continued and I was like, oh, he's not. At all. So I'm going to assume the little white girl is like, my parents were those original two storm chasers. Right. And I have inherited this storm chasing gene. I'm going to continue the work they started. Right? Because it looks like the little weird ball things from the first movie are in the trailer, right?
Yeah.
So someone's related to somebody. I think maybe she's like very, like she's just on her own. Maybe she meets Anthony Ramos in college and they're like, let's do this together. I don't know what it is. And they meet Glenn Powell and he seems to be a little bit more showmanship-y, like the bad guy, quote unquote, in the original movie. But he is someone who's like, oh man, I love those two original storm chasers. They're my idols. I have them tattooed on my chest. Whatever stupid nonsense.
And he ripped his shirt off and everything.
And she's like, wow, he's so hot. My dad's face is on his pec. And he's
Roy
like,
would have a field day with
if
that
you
one.
really want to get this done, like, let's team up. Like, you have the tech, like, the technology, but I have, like, the safety of, like, the vehicles and, like, the money or whatever. So let's team up. So she's like, okay, I guess. And Anthony Ramos is like, I'm the one minority in this movie. I'm going to be hilarious, probably.
Yeah.
Was he hilarious? I don't know. I'm just saying. And they start chasing Twisters. But of course, since the 90s, global warming, the climate crises, as we hear in the news.
I know. I'm like, crisis. What is this climate crisis? It's just global warming.
It's so weird, right? Because it's like weird. They stopped saying like climate.
You see, climate change was what they would call it.
Climate change to instead of it being like the greenhouse gas effect.
Yeah.
We're not gonna call it that. We're gonna call it climate change, so it doesn't seem so scary.
Yeah.
But now it's like we're getting rid of change, and we're somehow it's a climate crisis.
Because
so we're amping it right back up
dying.
again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a climate crisis. So now the Twisters are getting bigger and badder, and they're much more dangerous. And they are acting loco crazy, the Twisters, and they're doing stupid adrenaline junkie shit like, let me drive into the Twister. Oh no, we're too close to the Twister. I'm gonna assume the white people fall in love. Because all the adrenaline, that relationship isn't gonna last. I think Glenn Powell saves a dog. I feel like I've seen pictures of him holding a puppy. It's hilarious. Maybe Anthony Ramos almost dies, but they save him. There might be another bad guy, Twister, storm chaser. I don't know. And the storms all end, and they're like, we made it another day. Can't wait for next year.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the movie.
Okay.
Credits roll.
Credits roll. Okay. Not quite, but
just as I expected.
Not quite, but I would say thematically it's in the area. Okay.
Thank
Looks
you.
like my computer is done uploading. I I updated my backgrounds to have.
Was that really what you needed to do right now, Corinne?
No, it's not what I needed to do. All right, I love this trailer. All right, I've seen this trailer so many
Hold on.
times.
I was taking a shower earlier,
Uh-huh.
and that the Creedence Clearwater Bad Moon Rising song came on, and every time I hear that song now, I just think of this stupid moon movie.
Uh-huh.
And it's just, I'm so mad because that's a good song and they've completely ruined it. Okay.
The trailer was so good though.
Taco Casa. We're cowboys. We love America. I'm a white girl. Oh no. The wind. Climate crisis. Tornado warning. Oh no, the cows. Oh no, the white girl. Oh, is this another thing where she saw somebody get sucked up into a twister just like, what's her name?
Yeah.
You've never seen tornadoes like this.
Anthony Ramos. Anymore.
Hey, you see,
I don't think I've seen this trailer.
Really?
alright, fellas. We got PhDs from NASA, FEMA, and
I've never seen this trailer.
Oh, yay.
I've only seen the other trailer.
No, this trailer's so much better.
calls himself Tornado Wrangler. If you feel it.
Our crew is not like your crew.
Can't breathe, I can't catch my breath.
PhDs and fancy tech.
So they're the fancy ones.
Sometimes the old ways are better than the new.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that. Not my first tornado.
Yeah. That's the shirt I want.
Are those fireworks?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't like his smile.
You got quite the reputation, stick girl. You think you can disrupt a tornado?
There's those little things from the first movie.
But in the field, in the moment.
That's a Toyota Pilot.
We never had a chance.
You want one?
Are you seeing this?
What is that guy's problem? He's so annoying in this trailer. No offense to my Latinos, but God, that guy's annoying. He's the joke. I heard that during the filming of this movie, there was an actual tornado / twister, whatever. Going on.
Yeah.
I think they used some of that footage for this. I don't know if that's true.
Here's the reason you do it. You don't face your fears.
You don't face your fears, you ride them.
You ride 'em.
Dumbest advice in the world. A fire tornado! God, so stupid.
Those exist.
The album coming soon. Jesus Christ. I like how it's partnered with the American Red Cross. Well, at least they're doing that much.
With FEMA. Partnered with FEMA. All right. Do you want to revise any of your predictions?
Alright. She used to be a tornado chaser. I'm just so dead.
Yeah.
She used to be a tornado chaser, and then I guess maybe someone or multiple people got hurt, and she was like, I can't go back, so I'm just gonna be a nice, regular weather girl in the city, or wherever that is. I don't know, Tulsa or some stupid shit. And then Anthony Ramos is like, climate crisis! We need you! You're the best of the best! And she's like, I can't do that! And he's like, what would your parents think? What would they say if you gave up this beautiful opportunity? And she's like, you're right! You're right! So she goes. And they're like, we're super fancy because we got all the monies. We have all of the funding from, I don't know, the National Weather Association, right? It exists. Check out their website.
The Weather Channel, sponsored by the Weather Channel.
No, not the Weather Channel, the National Weather Association.
I thought the National Weather Service.
Yeah, it's a service.
I was gonna say.
The National Weather Service.
Yeah, I knew about that.
Yeah,
the association,
they should be
I
your
wasn't sure
most
about.
trustworthy weather source in the United States.
Mhm.
Okay. What the fuck was I talking about?
They're funded. They're fancy.
Okay,
they're
yeah, they're
sponsored.
super funded by the National Weather Service or whatever, right? Or I don't know, they're fancy Tulsa, New York, Chicago, LA weather station. Okay.
Yeah. Coastal cities.
And so they ride into town. And they're the new kid, yeah, like that. I don't know. And they got all the cool gizmos and gadgets. And they see Glenn Powell and his crew of misfits. And the white girl's like, psh, that guy doesn't know anything. And Glenn Powell's like, psh, she and her crew don't know anything. You know how it is. But then maybe they're like chasing the storm and they mess up or something, and she's like, oh no, just like I expected. And he like saves her and he was like, you really want to chase storms, girly girl? And she's like, shut up, leave me alone. And he's like, I'll help you chase storms. So they're like, let's team up. And the same thing where it's like, I have this old tech that I guess now maybe is improved tech that we can stop storms.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they get in over their heads with things like fire tornadoes.
Ugh, yeah.
And twin tornadoes. I'm gonna assume they try to deploy it, but like last time they just couldn't get it. Oh no, they did get it in the end, didn't they?
Yeah.
But it didn't work, right? So I'm gonna assume maybe it didn't work. Or maybe they stopped one of the twins, but not both.
Okay.
Because they only have enough for one. Something like that. I don't know. Anyway, and the two white people get together because it's a Hollywood movie.
Uh-huh.
And then she gets her face on the t-shirt that says, not my first tornado.
That would be cute. Okay. I'm going to try to do this off the top of my head because I feel like I really absorbed that movie fully.
Oh my god.
But I will look up the synopsis if I'm like, wait a minute. But I'm going to try to go it off the dome.
Okay.
So I watched this movie in 40X, and prior to this film, when I saw the trailer for the first time in the movie theater, which is the trailer I just showed you, I was in the theater watching the Ghost concert movie with my friend, even though we had gone to the Ghost concert a year ago. And I did not realize this movie would be exactly that concert, just like the week later. Like, it was the exact same thing. So I'm like, and that's too much for me. Like, I have like certain timelines, cycles of when I can rewatch something. Like, Lord of the Rings is coming up. I think I'm in the headspace where I can rewatch Lord of the Rings, which Jesse's very excited about. But this was too soon. But what made it worth it was I got to see the Twisters trailer for the first time. And I was so excited. And as soon as the trailer ended, my friend said, that looks so stupid. And I said, I can't wait to watch it. So I rewatched Twister. And then I got Jesse excited for it, and I was like, we need to watch Twister because he didn't think he had seen Twister. So I rewatched Twister again with him, but only up to a certain part because I had to go to sleep. And then we're getting ready to watch this movie. Jesse gets COVID, so he can't come. And, but before this, I said before he got COVID, the week prior, I was like, Jesse, Twister is gonna be the movie of the summer. It's gonna be the blockbuster of the year. And then 3 days after I said this, he sent me, or somebody found an article on Kotaku that literally said exactly what I said because they got an early screening of it. And then we found another article that said you should watch it in 40X because it rocks your shit. So then Jesse got COVID and I was like, well, I'm still gonna watch this movie in 40X. And I asked my friends if they wanted to see it, and they all said yes, except for the guy that I went to go see the Ghost movie with. But then I was like, I went to go watch that movie with you for moral support. And he was like, God damn it, you're right. Fine, I will watch this movie with you. So we all got tickets to go see Twisters in 40X. And it was like being on a roller coaster for 2 hours. It was incredible. I only got motion sick in the non-jittery parts, which is when like sometimes the car would like turn and then the seats would kind of turn with it, and that's when I was like, ooh. Or there'd be like a drone and you kind of feel like a little that. But otherwise, it was like you were there. They were throwing you around everywhere, and I will get into it once we get to it in the movie. So, the movie starts, and it starts with like some sort of like vlog filming thing. And it's like the main character, I don't even remember her name. Um the girl and her friends, and there's like her boyfriend and then three friends, and one of those friends is Anthony Ramos. And they've been kind of out like camping or whatever. He was just sleeping out in the field. And they're all going to the same school that Holly Hunter's team, I think it was Holly Hunter, in Twister, that
Holly Hunt?
Helen Hunt. Helen Hunt.
Helen Hunt.
I always get her mixed up with Holly Hunter.
Yeah.
Helen Hunt. Helen Hunt was working with that team of students from like Oklahoma State or whatever. So all of these kids also go to Oklahoma State. So that's why they have a version of Dorothy, because they're like part of that same program. It's just years later. So they're out here, and she's trying to get grant money for like her master's or PhD or whatever in fucking cloud science. And she's trying to prove that you could disrupt a tornado. So they're expecting like a category 1 tornado, basically, right? F1 tornado, whatever you want to call it. So it's her and her friends, and it's this like cutesy, vlog footage, whatever, like video footage of like, hey, haha, are you excited? Yeah, we're excited. Haha, let's do this. It's like this kind of fun, cute ragtag team. And Anthony Ramos is like kind of laying in the grass sleeping. He's like, oh, I don't want to get up so early, haha, whatever. And they're all having fun. They're like, okay, we're gonna go. So it's the 4 friends in one truck, and Anthony Ramos in the other truck, following behind him. So I'm like,
he's the only one who lives.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, so I know he survives, which means
which means everyone else is
and then
dead.
I know she survives, so everyone else in that truck is dead, and I know they die because of the trailer, right? So we're like, okay, I'm already prepared for it. And then like the seats start rumbling, and my friend next to me is like, whoa, my god, and everyone's like, ah. So we're like rumbling through, and they're chasing the storm. So the idea is she's made like some chemical compound where if they can release it up into the sky, it'll get mixed in with the tornado, and then it'll interact in some way, and the tornado will just like run out of steam or whatever. I don't know. The scientists say this is not actually like possible, like in a meaningful way. They're like maybe, but not the way that they're doing it, basically. But in the movie, that's the thing, right? So they go over and they're driving towards it, and then at some point Anthony Ramos is like, okay, here's where I'm gonna stop, have fun, because he's like the tech guy, he's the guy in the van. So he stops at a certain point, and they keep going, and they're driving because they have to drive into the storm to get the thing up. But then they realize that the tornado is actually way more powerful than I expected. It's like a Cat 3 or something, which is already like really big or something like that. It's like stronger than they thought by like a lot. And they were only expecting like a small baby tornado. So they're already like, oh my god, we're kind of out of our depth. First jump scare is like a hay bale crashes into the car, and then her boyfriend is the one driving. So it like crashes into like the windshield of the car, but like everyone's still okay. But the tornado, like, and then they release the stuff, and at first it seems like it's kind of working, but then it seems to get stronger. Like it seems like it totally backfired, and now the tornado's even stronger. So they're like, what do we do? We're out here, like, how do we can't outrun this thing, we're in the tornado basically. So they're saying, well, what if we go under the underpass? And she says, no, that's one of the worst places to be in a tornado, which is true. Yeah. Like, an underpass is basically like a wind tunnel. You do not want to be under there. But they're like, that's our only, like, we need to make a break, for we have to just run there. So, yeah. So they're like, okay, we're going to go. So the 4 of them run out, And as they're running, one of her friends, this Indian guy, he trips and gets sucked up by the tornado. He's the first one gone. And we're like, no! Like, they don't even know he got. Like, because he's behind them, he just falls and gets sucked up. They don't even know. So then it's just like her boyfriend, and then the other girl. And they're running and running and running. They get to the overpass, but it's like a kind of like a embankment slide thing. So the boyfriend gets up there and he helps his girlfriend up. But then the other girl, she's smaller and she's having a hard time like getting up there. So then they're like trying to grab her hand without like sliding off. And they're like, we're trying to get you. And she's like, ah. So then they just get her hand, and then like shit goes flying through the wind tunnel and like pushes her with it, right? So like the wind blows like a hay bale or something, whatever, through, and she gets like sucked out that way too. So she's like, no, my God. And then it's just her and her boyfriend, and the boyfriend is like on top of her, and he's holding on to her, and she's holding on to like the pole, and she's got like a gash in her foot or something like that. And he's holding on. He's like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. We're all gonna be okay. We're gonna make it. And I was like, you're not gonna make it. And then,
no, you're not.
He's not gonna make it. Like he's really likable. Like they do a pretty good job within the first like 5 minutes before it even starts of getting you to care, because they're like these college students and they seem to be having fun. They seem to be really good friends. Like they establish that so quickly. So it is like pretty like sad when they all die one by one in like within the first 10 minutes. And then he's like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And she's like, ah. And then some other shit flies through the wind tunnel and knocks him off of her. So then he also gets like thrown off of her as well and dies in the tornado. And she's like, oh my God. She's screaming and crying. Now she's all alone in like the wind tunnel, like in the underpass. And at this point, this is like our first experience with the seats, and we're getting thrown around. So they're screaming, but then my friend is next to me like shouting like, oh my God. And then like everyone's like jittering about it. We're getting thrown in our seats basically. And there's also like there's rain effects, there's wind, there's like fake lightning. It was very cool. And then it just cuts to white all of a sudden. And no sound, nothing. It's just cut to white. And then you see her like looking really drained in the aftermath of it. But the one drawback of the 40X is because this was the first experience with like the seats moving, is like everyone did that nervous laugh that everyone does when the roller coaster ends, but it was so tonally inappropriate for the movie. Yeah, everyone was like, oh my God, what's that crazy? Like the whole theater. Meanwhile, it's just like white, like she's looking there like, I've just lost 3 of my best friends, and I'm responsible for their death because I didn't want to turn around when they told me to. Sort of thing, because that's the other thing. They told her like, maybe we should go, and she was like, no, I think we can do it, sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it cuts to like, I don't know, 5 years later, 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
She's living in New York now. So she left Oklahoma. She's living in New York. She's working for the weather service. All that. Yep. The weather service stuff.
National Weather Service, baby!
Yeah. And then...
this episode brought to you by the National Weather Service.
Yeah. I wish. And then Anthony Ramos shows up. Like, he's in the conference room. They're like, somebody's using you. And she's like, oh, who is it? And then it's him. And I was like, yay! This whole movie, I was like, this man better not die. I'm gonna be so sad if he dies. So he's talking to her, and he's like, I never thought, like, can we go out for lunch, whatever? And she's like, okay, sure. And you can tell there's kind of some, like, romantic tension sort of happening. It was a little evident in the beginning, but here especially, it's, like, a little bit, like, he clearly has, like, a thing for her. Like, he's being respectful about it, but it's also evident that he's like, you're my friend, but, like, that's, like, the energy he's giving off. So they go out for...
I didn't like the hands things you did. I didn't like that.
You don't like this?
I don't like
But what
this.
if? JK, what
it
if?
It just makes me really uncomfortable. No, stop. Okay. People listening to this are going to think you're doing something really bad, but it's...
I'm just doing the finger point, like, bottom face fingers emoji. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. Anyways, so he takes her out for like lunch or something, but it's one of those lunches where they don't actually eat anything. They're just like at the coffee store.
It's so stupid. It's so annoying. Just fucking eat.
I love when they do. I could already tell. I was like, I already know what this is gonna be. I already know what this is gonna happen. At some point,
You know what they do in K-dramas all the time? They'll be like, let's go talk. Clearly they had to walk like 30 minutes or wherever to go where they're going. They've ordered drinks already, and they're sitting down, and they have their drinks in front of them. They're not drunken, and then they're like, drama, all this shit. I'm gonna go. And it's like, you didn't fucking touch your drink! You didn't touch your drink!
or they order, like, they'll be like, can I get a this and this, thank you, and then they'll have the drama, and they'll be like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna go. And I'm like, your food didn't even come yet. What?
I know, that's so disrespectful to the server in the chat. Anyway. Okay.
Also, for me, I would eat. I would eat. Anyways, I'd be like, can I get it to go if I really wanted to go? Because I want that food, you know. Anyways. So they're in like some diner, whatever area. They're catching up. He's like, I never thought you would be out here in New York. She's like, well, I never thought you would like get a full-time job and join the military, whatever. He's like, haha, yeah. So they're catching up, whatever. Because they haven't really seen each other since that incident. Like he's like, oh, I tried like reaching out, but you didn't really hear back. She's like, yeah, I've been busy. He's like, okay. And he mentioned like I got out of the military and I'm starting my own company venture basically. And something I worked at in the military is some, I don't know, some radar thing. And he's like, but I thought maybe we could use that to do like what you were trying to do with the tornadoes, where we could like triangulate a more accurate image while it's happening instead of us having to like go into the tornado, right? We could like put three. And she's like, what are you talking about? And my favorite part of these sorts of movies, he's like, hold on. And he goes up to the counter. He's like, can I borrow these? And it's like unlabeled creamer cartons. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure. And he comes back and he starts doing like the science demonstration with like, so imagine that like this is the tornado and then these are like the radar things. If we put them here, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I love it. I love when this happens. I love when they're using salt shakers and napkins and butter containers. I love that it's unmarked. I love that I can't see the branding. I love that it just says cream on it or milk or just nothing at all on it. It's just like clear aluminum foil just on there. And he's like, look, this is how you set it up, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I love this. I love this in a movie. So he's doing that. And he's like, so then if we do this, then we get like a perfect image. She'll be like, then we'll be able to say the tornado is better, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, exactly. And she's like, okay, cool. Why are you telling me this? He's like, well, you're the best one out there. You have like the tornado instinct. He doesn't actually say that, but that's basically what he's saying. He's like, there's no one better than you to like find the tornadoes. And she's like, I don't chase anymore. And he's like, look at this footage of what happened last time around where we were. If we did this, then we could do it better. And she's like, where are you getting the money for this? He's like, I've got an investor, you know, it's like, it's private, blah, 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 blah. I'm incorporating a team. And she's like, I don't know about this. And then she leaves. And then, of course, she's like, okay, JK, I'll do it. So she's like, I'll give you, I don't know, like a week or something. I'll give you a few days. I'll do it for a little bit, basically. I'm not like on there, but I will help you out for a little bit. He's like, yes, thank you so much. So she goes down to Oklahoma and he's introducing her to the team. And then there's this guy who is going to be the future Superman. I don't know his name, but he's going to be future Superman. He's like this tall guy with brown hair. Acts like a hard ass. But I don't remember his name.
Okay.
Anyways, he's there. He's somewhat important. I'm just gonna call him Future Superman because I know he's playing Future Superman. And so they're introducing, and
Is it? Oh, okay. This guy Scott.
Yeah.
The character's name.
Let's call him Scott. Yeah. So he doesn't really know what to think about her.
This? Sorry.
He found out on the set of Twisters, I think.
Oh.
It was kind of recent.
Exactly.
Wow.
All right, continue.
Gonna be Superman. Anyway, so Scott, he's very like stick up the ass, sort of like rigid. He thinks he's better than everyone, sort of character. So he doesn't know what to think about her because she's like this cutesy little blonde girl with a ponytail. And they're like, you city girl, what do you even know about tornadoes? Because they don't know she's actually from Oklahoma. They all just think she's like a city girl. So he's like introducing, he's like, she's one of the best, blah, blah, blah. Here's like the thing. And they've all got Wizard of Oz, like theme names, like code names, like Scarecrow, Tin Man, Lion, blah, 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 blah. And then they meet Glenn Powell's character, and they're like, ugh, these guys, and they're like loud and rowdy, and his crew is mostly like, now that I think about it, his crew is like mostly people of color. I think he might be the only white guy in there.
I saw that in the trailer.
Yeah, which I feel like is residual from Helen Hunt was trying to get a sequel made that primarily featured like storm chasers that were people of color, but just never got picked up. So I wonder if this is kind of that or what. I don't know. But yeah, so he's over there. They're rough and rowdy. They're selling T-shirts. They're like, ugh, this guy, he's whatever. And he takes an instant liking to her, and he's kind of ribbing her. And he's like, "City girl, where are you from?" She's like, "I'm from New York." And he's like, "Oh, you're from New York. What are you doing out here? How do you know how to see tornadoes?" Well, she's like, "Wouldn't you like to know?" Basically, like she's keeping her cards close to her chest. She's like, "Fuck this guy. I'm not telling you anything. I'm not gonna tell you I'm actually from here. You can just keep on believing I'm from the city." And he's like, "Yeah, I think you're from the city." So then at some point they go out and also he's got some British reporter that's like following along with them to do a piece on storm chasing, and he's interviewing and following along with it and everything, which he's the comic relief of the movie. Okay. And they like go out and they're watching the sky and they're having this cryptic conversation about like, oh, what do we think about that cloud system over there? And she's like, oh, I don't know, maybe that could be something, but also maybe that thing over there, ha 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 ha. And he's like, oh yeah, maybe that could be something. And then they both like go back to their crew, and she kind of tells him like, oh, I think the one on the right might be the one to get because the one on the left is like not very stable. And he's like, oh, really? Interesting. So then they go back, but then she goes, we want the one on the left. Like, she basically misled him, sort of thing. And he also is like, yeah, we want the one on the left. Because he also has, like, a tornado gift. So they go chasing after, and of course the one on the left is like she was right. That was the one that you want to go for. And they're setting up all the stuff. They're setting up all the radar things, et cetera, et cetera. But then when it's her turn to do it, because she's like the last one, they're going to be in this, like, in front of the storm, basically, with Anthony Ramos. When he's like, where should we put it? Where's it going to be? She like freaks out because she has PTSD, obviously. And she's like, ugh. So she freaks out. They don't get it done. It's a failure sort of thing. And he's like, it's okay. We all have these moments. It's fine. So she goes, they like stay, I don't know, they're staying at some motel or what.
Okay, continue.
They stay at some motel and she's feeling kind of weird about it, whatever. And then Glenn Powell and his crew are kind of ribbing at her. I forgot, they have some banter or whatever for some reason. She goes to her hotel room. And then the next morning she sees Anthony Ramos and his partner Scott are talking with like this old guy, and she's like, who is that? And he's like, oh, that's like our investor. He's like a real estate person, and he like helps out people, you know, who've had their houses destroyed or stuff. But he's also like kind of being a little cagey with the information. She's like, that's just my investor, like, have to go talk to him. She's like, okay. So then they go out and they're looking at the skies again. They're like, is there going to be any tornado? And then she and Glenn Powell do like their stupid banter thing again. But they like, the skies look really clear, and they're like, it doesn't look like anything's there. And she's like, yeah, we might be waiting all day. We just don't know. And he's like, yeah. And then she goes, and they sing some banter, and then she goes, you know what? You want me to get you like a coffee? And he's like, really? She's like, yeah, I'll get you a coffee. And he was like, sure, okay, I'll get this and this. She's like, all right, great. But she doesn't go to get coffee. She runs off to her team to say, I know where the next tornado is. And then they like screech out of there. And then he also is like, oh yeah, I know where the next tornado is. So then they're screeching out over there too. And this is where we get there's twins, because there's like 2 tornadoes. So they're trying to figure out which of the tornadoes to follow. And this is where I'm like, I don't exactly remember what happened over here.
Oh, so you stopped paying attention to the movie?
No, I was paying attention. It's just like so much was happening. It's like not as plot relevant, basically. It's like, oh, okay, another crazy tornado, but I'm trying to remember what happened here. Oh, that first tornado turned into a 5 tornado, not even a 3. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so yeah. So they track another storm that produces another tornado that also produces another tornado that splits off. And then Oh, I remember here. So so the first tornado that they kind of like misjudge or whatever, or they don't get it in front of it in time, the tornado twist, because I guess her name is Kate. Yeah, she like had the panic attack. Glenn Powell's character gets the tornado. So what they do is they drive into the middle of the tornado. And he's like, okay, put your seatbelts on, because the reporter guy is in the back. And the guy's like, what? And he's like, yeah, put your seatbelts on. And then they like drill the truck into like the dirt, and then they shoot fireworks up into the tornado. And they're vlogging the whole time. They're like, that's the answer to like what happens if you put fireworks in the tornado. So that's like Glenn Powell's team.
Oh, is that a great big question everyone had?
Yeah, they're live vlogging or whatever, like for the stream. So that's like the first tornado. They managed to do that. And that's where she's like, is that fireworks? And they're hooting and hollering, and the British guy like throws up because he's so traumatized too from it. So the second one, this one,
Okay.
Kate manages to get. Like Glenn, they kind of misjudge it because she's like, oh wait, we need to make like a last minute like change, like something suddenly changed. Go in this direction. And Glenn Powell sticks to the other one, but Kate was right. But this one ended up really, really strong. They set up like the satellite stuff, and it works, but the satellite also gets like knocked around, and the tornado ends up splitting off and destroys like another town. So they go to that town, they see all the destruction, and they're like helping out with their recovery stuff. And initially she sees like Glenn Powell, I think his name is Tyler, and his group are like,
Oh, what a terrible name. Continue.
yeah, they're like selling the t-shirts and stuff. She's like, ugh, they're capitalizing on everything. But then that investor guy is going around talking to people and like, here, sign here, blah, 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 blah.
He's buying their property.
Yeah.
For
And
cheap.
yeah, for like pennies, because it was recently destroyed basically. And then Glenn Powell was like, do you know what this guy is doing? Why are you working with these people? Like, they're taking advantage of these people. And she's like, you wouldn't know, you're selling t-shirts at these things, huh? And then he's like, oh, fine. So then he leaves. But then, like, she's helping whatever. And then some other lady, part of his team, comes up and is like, hey, we noticed you didn't eat. Like, here's some food for you. And she was like, oh, I don't have any money. And she's like, no, they're free. That's why we sell the t-shirts. And she's like, oh, no, you can keep it. So now she feels like a jerk because she's like, oh, I just said you were profiting off of them, but actually you're helping the people, which I thought was kind of corny. I was like, this happened within 5 minutes of each other. Like, really? So that was, to me, corny. So then they go home, and she's also like, I don't know what to think about like the people that I'm working with, because this real estate guy is like he's shady,
Yeah.
you know, that's like not great. And might also be like why he's interested in their tech of like, I guess, knowing where the tornadoes are going to be so he can get there
so
first.
He can buy the land.
Yeah, exactly. There's this fantastic scene though. She goes into the motel room, and then she's just kind of in there moping, and then she hears like a knock on the door, and she opens it. And Glenn Powell is there with like a box of pizza, and he's like, hey, I thought you might be hungry. And she's like, thanks. So she takes the pizza and closes the door in his face. It was so funny. And so she just closes the door in his face before he can like say anything else. And then she like goes, sits on her bed. She like opens the pizza box. She thinks about it. And then she goes back to the door and she opens it and he's still there.
I would have just eaten the fucking pizza.
And she's like, hey, thanks. And he's like, you seem depressed. She's like, I kind of am. He's like, here, let me show you around here. And she's like, okay. And then they go to a rodeo, and we get some nice patriotic shots of the rodeo.
Oh, that's where we get the rodeo?
Yes.
Okay, and then the Twister hits the rodeo.
Yeah. And then he's like talking to her, and he's like, oh, you know, haha, the rodeo, isn't this so cool, but you don't have any of these in New York? And she's like, you know, you keep calling me city girl. I'm actually from here. I've actually been to this rodeo. I actually live 30 minutes that way. And he's like, oh, and then she finds out that he used to do bull riding in rodeos, but then he stops, and then...
Of course.
And then, but then also he's like gone to college and studied meteorology, so even though he seems like this kind of country bumpkin cowboy like hick guy, he's actually like formally educated in meteorology, and he's taught all of that to like his whole crew. So they're both learning things about each other.
Come here.
And then the storm comes, and she's like, oh no, there's a big tornado coming. And then this is like the most intense tornado in the movie. And you see like it's all dark, and then you see like the lightning flash, and you see just like the silhouette of the tornado, and it's enormous. So she's like, we gotta get everybody out of here, oh my god, we gotta go. And that's when we get like all the chaos stuff and everything. And they run into a motel because they're like, do you have a basement? Do you have a storm shelter? And while they're in there asking, there's like these two guests that are like, I'm telling you, man, the like lighting doesn't work, this doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. They're like being annoying guests, and they're not taking anything seriously. Which one of them is the son of the guy in the Twister movie. Like, he's the son of that actor.
Okay.
So that's like his little kind of cameo sort of role. And like the girl there, she's like, there's a tornado coming. Didn't you get the tornado alert? Because like in the rodeo stands, everyone got like the phone alert.
Yeah, I saw that in the...
Yeah. And she's like, ugh, we get those all the time. They don't even mean anything. But then the tornado is there. So they're like, oh, we need to go. And there's like a pool. So they're like, okay, let's go into the pool, because the pool is drained. There's no water in there. So like, let's go there, because they need to get like as low to the ground as possible. So they're going in there, and they also have like a mom and a kid with them. And they're trying to get everyone in the pool, but then the couple that was in the motel, they go into their car. And they're like, no, 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 you don't want to get into the car. Don't get into the car. But they go into the car, and they drive off, and that's when we see the car get picked up. Except in the trailer, it shows the car hitting the sign. That doesn't happen in the final cut. It just gets sucked up. I was like, wait a minute. It's supposed to hit the sign. But it didn't.
Only you!
So it gets sucked up. And they're like, oh my god! So then they're like, we need to get into the pool. So they're like getting down into the pool. And they're holding on to the pole and stuff. But then the motel owner is like he's like, something happens where they kind of end up further than where they need to be, because they're trying to get to like the plumbing in the pool, because that's like hard lined into the ground. And Glenn Powell is trying to get this man to come over, and he's like, you need to stay as low to the ground as possible and just crawl to me, you know, like literally like army crawl. But the guy keeps getting up. He's like, don't let it get me, don't let it get me. He's like, well, stay to the ground, don't get up, don't get up. But then the guy, of course, keeps getting up a little bit, and then he gets sucked into the tornado. And we were like, no!
Well deserved.
And then like a camper falls into the pool and like kind of falls over. Like, all this shit is happening. It is extremely intense. And Glenn Powell finally gets to them, and they're hanging on to like the pool structure thing, and it's kind of like extremely traumatizing for Kate, because it reminds her of like the beginning of the movie, because the mom is also saying,
girl needs to go to fucking therapy. Continue.
Yeah, the mom is telling her daughter too, like, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay, sort of thing. And she's like, ah, and then Glenn Powell's like, I got you. They survive. But that tornado scene was so intense that I was like tearing up crying, because it was so scary. I was like, oh my god! It was like very, and then like the seats are throwing you around at the same time, so you're watching this happening, but then you're getting rocked around. It's like you're in the tornado. It was very frightening. Then it ends, and they're like, oh my god, this was so devastating. And then she confronts Anthony Ramos, and she's like, your investor is awful. And he's like, you don't know that. And she's like, yes, I do. And then they have like a fight. So then and then he also, so they're like having this whole argument stuff, and then he ends up kind of like blaming her for the death of the friends. Like, he kind of just says it like, well, how is that different from you? You sacrificed your friends for your grant money, sort of thing. And she's like, ah. And then he's like, I didn't mean it. And then she runs off. So then she goes to her childhood home. So she goes to her mom's place. And then they have the mom reveal. And it's shot like you're going to see Helen Hunt. And who do we see? A random woman. Someone completely different. So it's like, oh. So she's over there reminiscing and looking at like her workshop area. And then Glenn Powell shows up. And she's like, how did you find me? And he was like, I just did. And then he was like, I just...
I'm a stalker!
It wasn't clear. But he's like, oh, wait, we looked you up and we found out about your accident. I'm so sorry about your friends. She was like, yeah. And then she tells him about like her research and how she was trying to disrupt the tornado, and how here's the model. It worked here, but on the field it didn't work. And he was like, well, do you want a second chance? So they start working together, and they figure out what went wrong. I don't know. They didn't account for the moisture in the air. So that was what went wrong. So
if you're a fucking meteorologist, the first thing you're fucking accounting for is the fucking moisture in the air. I'm sorry. That's like Rule 1 of meteorology is like how much fucking moisture's in the air, because that's how you're gonna know all about like the fucking wind direction and shit and cloud shit. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. Anyways, something about the moisture in the air. So then they try it again with like a smaller tornado using like the data, like the visualization from Anthony Ramos's character, whose name is Javi. I'm seeing now on the Wikipedia page. And because he's like, what can I do to make it up to you? And she's like, well, your data for one. He's like, okay, here you go. So then they use that to try to put in the tornado, but it doesn't work. And that's when they're like, it was, but the model, what's wrong with the model? They're like, oh, it was the model that was wrong. Here we go. So then they have like a better understanding of it now. So they're like, okay, let's try it again. And they're chasing another tornado near El Reno, in Oklahoma. And there's kind of like this altercation happening between Javi and Scott, where they're like, oh, like, I don't know what to do, blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm feeling bad now. And Scott's like, we need the money. Like, just follow the thing. Like, who cares about her, blah, 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 blah. But then this fire tornado happens all of a sudden. And their truck is kind of like, they're almost caught into it, but they managed to just get out. I was like, oh my god, he cannot die right here. He cannot die right here. I cannot have him die in this movie. I cannot have Anthony Ramos die in this movie. Because the tornado hit like an oil refinery. So like fire tornadoes do exist. Like fire tornadoes, water spouts, twins, like all the tornadoes they show can and do exist. It's just you know. I don't know if that's how they form, but they do exist. So they're like, oh my god, this fire tornado. And then they realize this massive tornado is heading towards El Reno. So they're like, oh my god, we have to go warn people because they have no idea what's coming. So Tyler and the team, they all drive over there to go warn them. And Javi's like, it's right in the path of these people. They have no idea. We should go warn them. And Scott's like, fuck those people. And Javi's like, you know what? And then he kind of stops the car because the guy's like, we need to stop the car and like set up the stuff. So he's like, fine. So he stops the car, and then his partner gets out, and then he drives off without him. And I was like, yay, redemption arc in full force. So he goes over to the final scene, so this final town, and it's kind of like this quaint town. They have no idea what's coming. They've got like some little fair going on, etc. And they're like, you gotta get out. And like the wind starts picking up. They're like, you gotta get out of here. Like, pack your stuff up. We gotta go. There's all this chaos. Like, everything is like blowing out, whatever sort of thing. And they're telling people like, where's like the strongest building we have? They go into this old school movie theater, and they're like, is there like a basement here? There isn't, but they're like, let's just be in the movie theater. So they're trying to get into the movie theater, and then Kate is like watching this tornado, and she's like, this tornado is humongous. Like, it's like, they're pulling inspiration from like the mile-wide tornado that was in Oklahoma like a while ago. Like that's the whole scenario is kind of based on when there was like that big cluster of tornadoes in Oklahoma. So they're like, even like the movie theater was kind of similar to that. So she's looking at it, she's like, these people don't have a chance. Like, there's no way. And she goes, I'm going to try to stop this tornado. So she runs off into the car, and Glenn Powell is like, no, come back here, no. And Anthony Ramos is like, no, man, like, you gotta, she's gone now. Like, we just gotta save as many people as we can. And he's like, you're right. So then they're trying to help all the people in the movie theater. They're like, get as far away back from the screen as possible. Like, hang on to the stuff, blah, 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 blah. And she's in the truck, and she's driving over, because they got, like, gallons of shit, of, like, the tornado disrupting stuff. And so they're in the movie theater, and then the movie theater screen literally gets blown out by the tornado, which is surreal because I'm watching this movie in a movie theater.
It's all coming together.
Whoa, it's so meta. It was like, whoa! Even like the way that they framed it just gets ripped apart. You just see the tornado right there. It was like, whoa. And then people who are like too close to the front of the screen are getting sucked out, and I'm like, oh my god, because like they're holding on to the seats of the movie theater, but it's an old movie theater, so like the screws are getting unloose. So people are like getting sucked out through there, and I'm like, oh hell no! Like they're too.
Oh hell no!
Hell no! No!
Oh hell fucking no!
Literally, one of the team members almost gets sucked up, but she gets grabbed by the hand. They manage to pull her back down, and it's like intense. And then Kate, she like drills herself into the ground in the truck and then releases the shit. Stop thumbs downing me.
I'm thumbs downing. You can see George is like,
He's like,
Kate, she's annoying. She's an annoying character. Okay, continue.
So she's in there and she releases the shit into the tornado. And there's also a thing where Glenn Powell's character says like, we don't face our fears, we ride them. So she's riding her fears, I guess, which is what I tell myself when I'm learning how to ice skate.
Oh my god, all of you suck so hard.
So she's in the middle of the storm. She's confronting it. And then, like, it's so strong that it's kind of like unscrewing the screws into the ground. Mm-hmm. So she's looking like she heard the truck get spun around and she's in the tornado, but she's also having, like, a Jesus moment. Like, oh.
Jesus.
Well, it's like when Helen Hunt was like, I want to see it! Because she was also really annoying in Twister. It's like, I want to see the storm! So she's having, like, that moment of, like, I'm seeing the storm. And then, but it finally works. It works. And just before the one team member gets blown away, she finally lands onto the ground because the tornado has dissipated. And she saved everybody. And they're like, but what about Kate? And then I guess the truck got lifted into the air and then it like slammed down or whatever and it's like face down on the ground or whatever. But she like crawls out of the mud and dirt and she's alive and she's okay. And they're like, yay! And then she's like at the she's at the yeah, she's okay. She saved everybody. So now she's at the airport. She's about to go home. Anthony Ramos and Glenn Powell are there to see her off. And Glenn Powell's like, I don't know whether to go into the airport with her or not. I'm not sure. And Anthony Ramos is like, dude, just do it. And he's like, you're right. So then he goes off, and Anthony Ramos is like eating popcorn. Like, I wonder how this is gonna go. Oh, also, Glenn Powell is there, and like this airport attendant is like, you can't park here. And he's like, I'm not parking here. My hazards are on. He's like, okay, but you gotta move. He's like, I will. But then when he's like, should I go? Should I not? And Anthony Ramos is like, you should go. He's like, you know what? And then he drills into the asphalt. And I'm like, that's federal property you're vandalizing. And then he runs into the airport. And he sees Kate and he hugs her. And then the movie ends. They don't kiss, which I thought was bold and I liked, but a lot of people complained about. Yeah. And then there's like a later, like in the post credits, I think there's like a joke with the shirts again, but I don't remember what it was. But it's kind of assumed that now Anthony Ramos and Glenn Powell and Kate all like partner up, and now they're doing.
It sounds
stuff
like they're
together.
a throuple, is what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
What you're implying is you're now a throuple.
Yes, it's like Challengers, but it's a storm. Yeah, exactly, Celebration. I was like, so it's OT3. This is perfect OT3 material. She doesn't have to choose from her childhood best friend and this new hot stud because they both love her so much, and it's just like a fun sandwich. Like, it's great. And then that's the movie. So, yeah.
The calendar invite still says that we were going to discuss Greenland.
I know it does. We will talk about Greenland later.
I literally came in thinking we were going to talk about Greenland, and then you were like, we're going to talk about Twisters.
Yeah.
And I was like,
well, I said last week we would talk about Twisters.
I know, but I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember anything.
Well, that's the movie. Also, I forgot to mention, there's like a scene where they both are looking at a tornado together, and he's like nerding out about it, and that was the moment in the theater where I was like, aw, he's just a big nerd. He's just a big geek. He's just a little nerdy nerd who likes tornadoes and just looks like a hot cowboy. Alas.
Some people have such hard lives.
Alas. Well, that was what made me finally like drop. That was like the horn of Jericho, and my walls came crumbling down.
And the horn of Jericho!
And I no longer had any defenses against him because I was trying not to like him. I went in like, I don't care about this guy, but this movie made me care about him. So, he just has too much charisma.
The
Riz. It's so strong. When you realize he's just a nerdy tornado guy, and he's doing it because he loves it, and he also is like really into her, then it's like, oh, that's cute. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that was the movie, pretty much, in a nutshell. Thoughts?
Um, it's fine. It's whatever. I really don't have any strong opinion. Like, it's still kind of just like, all right, I'll watch it when it's on Netflix or Amazon or whatever.
Mm.
For not expensive, for cheap.
Yeah.
Because I think it's technically on like Amazon Prime now for like $20 or
Mm.
whatever. Yeah, I guess it doesn't interest me. I know that you're really into it. I know you're super into it. This is like you last week. You were like, okay, but what's the drama on about Pope's Exorcist?
Yeah.
And that's fine.
I
But
feel like my draw is stronger because it's not just reliant on an actor.
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Russell Crowe is just so good.
Okay,
He's
but
just so good at his job.
if Russell Crowe was in a disaster movie, would you watch it?
It depends.
Can you pretend that Gerard Butler in Greenland is Russell Crowe because they look so similar to me?
They don't look alike. Just because you think they look alike
They look
doesn't
alike.
mean they do look alike.
I think they look alike.
No.
And they could play brothers.
They could not. I mean, maybe.
They could play brothers.
Yeah, one's got a really bad Scottish accent, the other one's got a really bad Australian accent.
Brothers. They were adopted.
Brothers! Okay, yeah, I mean, it's fine. I don't particularly like that they kind of set up Anthony Ramos as a sort of villain. So that to me, I think just because, I'm just thinking, this is like such a weird pool, but there was that like, I don't know if he was a councilman or whatever from California. He was Mexican and he was gentrifying his community.
Oh.
And so to me, it gives me that vibe of like, you do know what he's doing and you're like okay with it. So that to me, I don't like that. Like, I don't know, like as a person of color.
The optics.
The optics. Yeah, I guess that for me is what I don't like, is the optics of that. Like, Scott the white dude, yeah, that fucking turd would do it, right? Like, whatever. But I'm like, not Anthony Ramos, right?
They did kind of frame it like he wasn't thinking about it past the ideal.
Yeah, like having the money to do the thing.
Well, or not even just that. He viewed it as like, no, he's helping people because they've lost everything. And like, he's, you know, giving them money, like he's buying their stuff and now they have money to rebuild. But I think the way they framed it made it seem like he wasn't thinking past that on like, okay, but what is this actually doing? That was how it kind of came across, or that maybe he was willfully choosing not to like think further than the like veneer of the deal. So yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if the girl actor is any good, but she's, again, it's just like generic white lady to me. That doesn't interest me. Her story doesn't interest me at all. Yeah.
I honestly thought they did a pretty decent job with it. Like, in my opinion, they made you care about the characters quite a bit, which I never go into these movies expecting to care about the people.
Yeah, I know you're not big on on this. You're just like, I want to see the destruction.
Let me
of
see
the
the
tornado.
carnage. But with this, I felt like they did a really good job of it, and it kind of was like a rom-com that happened to have tornadoes and lots of destruction in it.
Okay.
Because it was very like, boy meets girl. Girl doesn't really like boy. They chase storms. and then they fall in love, sort of question mark, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like I cared about the characters for the most part. Like
Okay.
I cared about them. I thought the way they handled her story was pretty good. Is it generic? Sure. But I thought they still did it well. Which doesn't surprise me too much because of the director. Like it's Isaac Lee Chung, so the same guy who did Mean Nutty. Which makes a lot of sense to me because there was some truly beautiful cinematography going on in there, and he grew up around that area, so I think it was a good choice because it was very like scenic. It felt very like I don't want to say love letter to the Midwest, but kind of like it was very like it didn't play that area down. It was kind of more like let's look at how beautiful it is, even though it's dealing with this destruction. And I heard that they had gotten several local weathermen of that area to like be on the show, or I think it was more like they were using like the real footage of those weathermen. So I heard that screenings in Oklahoma, people were like cheering whenever their local weatherman came on. They're like, "Hey, it's our guy," or "Hey, it's this person," sort of thing. So I thought that was cute.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't love that the director they never outright say why this is happening because I was reading in the production that like the screenwriter intentionally was being like, yeah, it's because of climate change, because the climate crisis, global warming is causing Tornado Alley to be wider than it usually is and to be more intense than it usually is and to be longer now. But the director was like, I didn't want to bring up any of that because I didn't want to like make people think it was political or polarizing or whatever, which I don't know how I felt about that because I was like, I get you're trying to make a blockbuster, but in my opinion, if that is what's causing it, that is what's causing it. And if that's the vehicle that people are going to receive it, then maybe they will be more open minded to it. But anyways. But yeah. Overall I thought I liked it more than the first movie, to be honest.
Okay.
Because the first movie's character story really annoyed me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, Helen Hunt is the real villain in this whole movie. She is so, in my opinion, so disrespectful to the relationship of her ex husband and his fiance, and almost seems maliciously, intentionally sabotaging their wedding. It's like, what do you mean you didn't know you had to sign the last page? Like, why didn't you look through all of it? And then you're like I don't know. It was like she could have just like signed it in 2 seconds and be like, okay, here you go, bye. But instead she's like, but look at this thing. Look at this thing that you did. Don't you want to see this thing? Don't you want to see this? Don't you want to come along? And it's like, what are you doing? So I don't know. And then she was just like, when she was like, I want to see it. I want to do this. I want to blah blah blah. And it's like, girl, what are you doing? You're being crazy. You're being irrational. But whatever. I don't know. I was like, I like Helen Hunt, but I wasn't a fan of like the actual character story. And then her stupid ex-husband being like, "I love you. I'm right here." Da, 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 da. And I'm like, "Your fiance is here. Like, what are you doing?" But yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I would watch it again. I want to watch it again this weekend.
I know you were literally just saying you're gonna watch it again.
Yeah. So then, what would you rate this movie?
I guess like a 3 out of 5. Is that fair?
I mean, maybe for you.
Yeah.
For me,
I know.
10 out of 5.
I know.
It's
Yeah, it's like okay. It just doesn't interest me to go running to see it.
yeah. That makes sense. This movie gave me everything I wanted. So 10 out of 5, 5 out of 5. It's the movie of the summer. It's the blockbuster of the year. It's a solid movie on its own, but if you can watch it in 40x, highly recommend it. Like, it literally, it was 40x's most successful film. Like, it's the most successful film for 40x to the point where they are doing a re-release in 40x. They almost never do that, but they are re-releasing it because so many people had FOMO for missing out on it in 40x. So Yeah, it's great. It is the ideal way to watch that movie. Cool.
Okay.
Well, if you've seen Twisters in 40X, let me know how you thought about it. If you haven't seen it, sorry you missed out. But let me know what you thought about that movie.
Too bad for you, my dude.
Sucks to be you. But yeah, where can they find us, Monzy?
You can find us at We Don't Watch Movies Pod. Is that right? On Instagram. You can find me at Magic Monster on Instagram.
Nice. You can find me at Koreana's Korean on Instagram. That's 1 R and 2 N's. All right. Thanks for listening and or maybe watching, and we'll talk to you next time.